About a year ago, in April, I was sat on a beach in Uluwatu in Bali, as a lot of you have probably done. If you haven't, would recommend. The trip had just ended. Everyone had flown home, and it was me and my cameraman Lewis. It was just the two of us, sand in every crevice, if you know what I mean. Sun was going down beautifully over the horizon, and we had a bintang in each hand. And the poor guy still had his camera bag on him, by his feet, purely out of habit, basically. Okay, and because he knew if he didn't, I'd whip him. Not like that, maybe. And we were laughing because day 3 of the trip, something had happened that unfortunately I can't say on this camera, and we've been quoting it back to each other ever since. Now, before I get into what I figured out sat on that beach finding myself, I want to flag something for you up front. What I'm about to talk to you about has actually made me £0. In fact, if I added up the trips, the dinners, the flights, the time, it would have cost me probably multi 6 figures by this point in my life. And going forward, hopefully millions more. Yet it has done more for my life than any number on a screen ever has, ever could, and ever will. Okay, if you're a founder watching this and you're chasing a number because you think that this number is going to fix you, this is the conversation I wish someone had sat me down for. When I was 20, when I just started building my business. And so here's what I figured out, and it's the thing that I keep coming back to every Monday morning. I'm sat with a coffee, I'm working out why I'm still excited to do this, and why when I'm 70 I won't have a head and heart full of aches and this like soul destroying regret that we're all running from constantly. Most founders I know are running on a terrible piece of software, and the software, it goes like this, okay? I'll be happy when. Let me explain this, okay? So it's like, I'll be happy when the round closes, or I'll be happy when I do $1 million a month, all right? I'll be happy when I can stop checking the bank account, or when the exit comes, or when I get the hot girlfriend, or whatever the it is. Look, we've all said some version of this, and to us, it feels like motivation, right? That's why we do it. It's almost a coping mechanism. It feels like discipline. It feels like that thing that keeps you working at 1 a.m. when no one would notice if you stopped. It's like the thing that you always tell yourself to make you feel better, okay, make you feel warm and like you're coddled, like you're really changing the world. The shit part is that it feels productive, while actually I would say it's poisoning you. Because what's actually happening, and this is the whole point of the video, which we'll get into throughout and I'll explain it, but what's actually happening when you say I'll be happy when, is you're taking your happiness, your dopamine, the thing that is supposed to be available to you on a day-to-day basis, and you're posting it or pinning it or throwing it or pushing it to a forward date that doesn't exist yet. Now, if you're the kind of person who builds, or you're anything like me, which I'm sure you are if you're watching this, I speak primarily to young founders and founders in general, then you already know this thing is going to happen, right? Take me for example. I know that when I'm older, there is not a single doubt in my mind I will be worth a considerable amount of money, right? In my head, I genuinely see it as like a in crystal clear fact, as a place I will 100% get to. I personally think that none of us would be doing this if you didn't have some level of that thinking in you already, right? Which means, in fact, that you've placed your happiness on a future date because you've already decided it's inevitable. So why the would you do that? If you've decided that to some degree it's inevitable, why would you place it on that date? You're going to get there. Which means in the meantime, you've got to be happy at some point. But happiness is not supposed to be the end of something, and it's never going to be an arbitrary number that you just kind of like award yourself after a certain amount of time. It's something else entirely, I believe, at least. I want to speak to you about this. It's near and dear to my heart, right? And once you accept that this date is coming in the future, but it's not today, and that the number won't fix you, and that the exit is just going to feel like a Tuesday with better weather and a bit more cash, and maybe a few more alcoholic beverages, beveraginos, then you're left with a bit of a question, right? Which I want you to ask yourself. If happiness isn't waiting at the finish line, then where is it? And is there anything that you, person watching this, can do about it day to day? Or in actual fact, are you just stuck with whatever mood you woke up in? Are you just going to let life push you around and kick you about, right? I personally believe there's something you can do about it. And there's a way to tilt this thing in your favour massively. I figured this out and I was like, why the fuck does everyone not know about this and how to do it? It's like you unlock the key to a different universe, basically, where it's just constantly fucking sunshine and rainbows, the thing that everyone tells you it's not. And when you've cracked this, you'll look 10 years younger, you'll have a 10x better life, more fulfilled life than the ones who haven't, and you'll always have a higher net worth as well, right? So the actual practice of it, the bit that you can take into your Monday morning, I'll walk you through nearer the end because it will make more sense once you've heard the rest of what I'm about to say. Quick aside before I go any further, right? I don't want this to land as like anti-ambition content, right? Because trust me, it isn't, right? You need to set goals. I really believe that, okay? The thing I'm warning you against isn't the goal setting in particular. It's putting your life in escrow, waiting for the goals to deliver something they weren't built to deliver. Does this make sense? There's a lot of people put their entire self on the end. Don't. Because here's the trap, right? You're going to look back on this period of your life when you're young, like me, chilling on this balcony, 23, vibing, 5-star hotel, feeling good, probably going to sauna later, going to eat some steak in a bit, okay? You'll look back on this period. Maybe it'll be from 50, maybe 70, but you are going to look back. And this version of you that's looking back isn't going to grade this period by the size of your bank account or the round you closed or the multiple on the exit. He or she is going to grade it by what you noticed and what you missed out on. It's always what you missed, not what you had. You know, it's things like whether you were present while your mum and dad were still healthy and you were taking them on trips, okay, and they could still travel and you could take them around and go to these places with them. Or whether you went to your mate's stag do or you didn't because you said you had a launch. Or whether you were actually in the room with your friend's wedding or whether you were fucking checking Slack. Or whether you were properly available for the people who loved you in the years before everyone had kids and mortgages and the calendars got full, right? That's the window you're in right now. You're in the best period of your life, and I see founders time and time again just acting like it isn't, acting like they're poor when they have this, when they can enjoy life like this. I'm a culprit of this. Your friends are still young, your parents are around. It is the most freedom and the least amount of responsibilities that you will ever have as a young individual, okay? And I think the cost of postponing it is that you, and I can almost promise you this, you will spend the rest of your life trying to remember it instead of actually being in it. And that is soul crushing. So set your goals, celebrate them, but please, please, please don't put life on hold while you wait for them, okay? Your life isn't going to get better as the numbers get bigger. It's going to be different. Because the numbers don't change the design of the thing, your life. Happiness, I believe, is just a frequency that you can tap into. And I'll show you how, okay? But it isn't a place. It's not a destination. It's not a date. Which means it's available now or it isn't available at all. And you make that decision. So, I tell you, here is how I tap into it constantly, okay? I want to tell you about a man rolling a boulder up a hill. Because there's a piece of this I couldn't articulate until I came across this story a few months back, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Most people have heard of Sisyphus, okay? And if you haven't, go and look him up. It's quite cool, all right? But I'm going to tell you now in layman terms. Greek mythology, 8th century BC, and the version most of us know comes through Homer, okay? The story goes that Sisyphus was the king of Corinth, all right? He was a clever man, but a bit too clever. This might sound a little bit like you. The kind of clever that gets you in trouble with the gods, okay? So he cheated death 2 times. First time, he tricked Hades himself. He chained him up so no one on earth could die for a while. And then the second time, he convinced this other god to let him go back to the world of living for one last errand, but then he actually refused to return. So he was a little tricksy bastard. And Zeus, I know you all know Zeus, he'd had enough of it, all right? And the punishment was specific. Sisyphus would spend eternity in the underworld, eternity, you heard that right, rolling an enormous boulder up a hill. Every time he would reach the top, the boulder would just roll back down. The hill was like a cone, okay? So he'd walk down after it, put his shoulder to it, and start over. Forever. Now the Greek reading was that the whole point is it's futile to do stuff, right? It's just punishment. There's another guy who's a part of this story, and this is the part where I want you to pay attention. His name is Albert Camus. He picks up this myth and he does something very, very interesting with it, all right? By the way, if you want to learn more about these kind of people, 2 podcasts I'd recommend is How to Take Over the World and then Founders. 2 amazing podcasts. You'll learn a lot about history. You need to do some reading as well on top of it, but great stuff. So anyway, he writes a book in 1942. He calls it The Myth of Sisyphus, and he argues that the Greek reading is actually incomplete. Camus says that if you look at this image properly, a man, a boulder, and a hill forever, that's actually not just one person. That's all of us. We will wake up on Monday morning, our shoulders are something that's going to be reset by Sunday, the deal closes, another opens, something gets launched, you have a birthday, you just have another one next year, and then eventually what happens is you die, and it all gets washed away. And maybe you go out and hit a record month, well, the next month you'll be at 0. Life is the boulder. The hill resets, and there is no summit you reach and stay at. I think you're starting to understand this now, and I really need you to, before I tell you how exactly to do it. And then Camus writes the line that the whole book is built on. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, because if the joy was waiting at the summit, there'd be no joy anywhere, given the summit never exists. It's a constant, not a peak. So the joy has to live in the rolling itself, and this is what I love, right? It's in the push, it's in the walk back, down the hill, or it doesn't live anywhere. That's the argument. The joy was never going to be at the top of the hill. It was always going to be in the climb, the constant, which is the same point that I was making about happiness not being a date. I like the analogy of Sisyphus because it makes it physical. You can see a man rolling this huge boulder up this hill and doing it over and over again, okay? The hill resets. There's no 1 mil month and then that's it at the top of the hill, right? Where you get to put the boulder down. It's just the next push. It's the next way up. The founders that I personally have watched burn out, and I know hundreds of founders, young ones, old ones. One's worth $1 billion, one's worth two-figure entrepreneur, right? The ones who fail, recover, dust themselves off, and they'll push a different boulder, right? The ones that burn out are the ones who hated every step of the climb, because they were sure that the summit was the prize and either reached one and found nothing or they didn't even reach it. So the fix is learning to love the push. All right, now you probably think, all right, Callum, I get that part now, Jesus. But how do I do these things? How do I feel that? I got you, listen up, all right? Happiness is a fluctuation. It moves up and down all day, every hour. Like now I've got a beautiful sunset. In a bit, it's going to be nighttime. These are different states, okay? And you can't choose that. The sun will rise in the morning, as it always does. It's not an offer. What you can choose is how often in a given week you're going to catch that moment, that swing upwards, which is the frequency, okay? And the frequency, you already know what it feels like because everyone has been on it. Everyone's been on that euphoric, wow, or I can just sit back and enjoy this. You're in Italy, you're on the Amalfi, you're looking out the coastline, you can see boats, it's a sunny day, you're smiling, the sun on your face, right? You're playing football on the beach in Bali, the sun's just going down, someone's done something fucking ridiculous, everyone's laughing. Maybe it's something, and I love this one personally, where just the wine's good. You're having dinner and you got a nice bottle of wine and food's good, or you're playing chess with your dad, or whatever, right? When you're in that like flow state of enjoyment, whether you have to take yourself out of the moment and look at it or whether you can just be in it. Right, enough of my rant. The actual practice. How do you tilt the frequency in your favor? Day to day. 2 things, honestly. The first is noticing. It sounds soft, but it's the lever. I'll explain this. But because most of the time you're already in a good moment. You're already here with the sun going down, right? Recording a video, okay? And you're just missing it. You're mentally somewhere else. You're in tomorrow's meeting or you're thinking about your to-do list, right? You're in next week's launch or whatever the fuck it is. The skill is catching yourself in the moment you're already in. Your mate's laughing at something stupid and you don't have to do anything except just clock it, clock the moment. This is good. I'm in it. I'm here, I'm living, I'm alive, I'm breathing well, I've got all my fucking limbs, my family are alive. That's the technique. It sounds embarrassingly basic. It's also a thing that no one does. Second is your old friends, okay? I made a video a while back about not cutting them off. Don't cut your old friends off. And I want to bring that back here. these people you grew up with, the ones who knew you before any of this, they are the version of you that lived on the frequency naturally because you didn't know any other way to be. And that version of you is still there. And my whole point is you can easily get back to that version of you through the people who knew that version of you and still do. So when you cut those people off because they don't fit your new fucking tax bracket, right? Or because the conversation feels small and inadequate, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? You're not just losing them. I would say that you're losing a way to get in contact with that old frequency, that old version of yourself. Keep them, please, and for God's sake, check in with them every now and then. Go to the pub on a random day. Get trolleyed. Just enjoy it. Enjoy being here. I can tell you now that they are not slowing you down. Okay. They're the only people in this world, genuinely in this world, who can pull you from your egotistical self, trying to be this version of you that you're not yet, which is good, but not in all manners, gently off the I'll be happy when, and get you back in that room that you're actually sat in, being the old version of you, right? Notice the moment you're in, stay close to the people who knew you before, and the frequency of happiness, just the realization that you're here and that everything is actually amazing right now will all take care of itself. Which brings me back to that beach in Bali to wrap everything up. I was sat there with Lewis, my old creative director. He's still a very good friend of mine. With the Bintangs. He'll smile if he's watching this because he'll remember it. Laughing about the week, all right? The trip itself had been the boulder. It had been just months of planning and things going wrong and late nights and this kind of like constant low-grade anxiety of being responsible for everyone else's experience, which was the pushing. Then the trip ended. Everyone went home, and guess what? Where do you think that boulder was? It was rolling down the hill. Because there's going to be another trip. There always is. But on that beach, with Lewis, sat next to me, that tiny break where the boulder rolls back down, right? I wasn't at that summit. I was walking down, okay, ready to push it back up again. Watching the sun go down, and it was the happiest I'd been in months because I was noticing that I was there for the first time. Really noticing, feeling like I'd done something. I was on the frequency. You know, I was sat next to a really good friend of mine who I also work with. I got the pleasure of working with back then. Who'd seen the whole week through a lens, right? Literally through a camera lens. And that is the rolling. That's the point. If you can't feel that, no number on a screen is going to install that feeling later. And at some point I said, we're never going to be this age again. And the feeling that sentence gave me has been with me since, okay? That we're just not going to be this age again. Not in a depressing way. It should land as a reminder mostly. You're always living in someone's good old days, okay? And that someone is the version of you that's going to look back from 20 years from now and miss that exact day. That pub, that mate, that laugh, that stupid thing you did, that week. And those friends that you were tempted to drift away from because the conversations felt small. You're in the good old days right now, trust me. Trust me, mate. You are there as we speak. Okay? You always are. Because they're not behind you. They're not ahead of you. They're in the chair you're sat in this very minute. Look, I'm in Dubai right now. I'm sat at the address. I'm looking down at the marina, watching the sun go down. Okay, it's about probably 26, 27 degrees. I'm 23, and I'm noticing it. Because that is the only difference between today being a good day and today being a Monday.